That should be enough time for everybody to join. If anyone's late from now, they can just sort of catch up as we go. So thanks for joining us today. As always, it's great that you guys spend your time with us when we do these webinars. Today, we're going to be looking at some of the differences and similarities between our surveillance software. And it will be a standard Craig presentation with all the usual information and interesting points that he can show us. So Craig, over to you.
All right, thanks a lot, Tom. So today we're going to do just a couple of slides, and then we'll go into a bit of a live demo of how the solution works, and then we'll go just show you some best practices for recommending the solution, how to pick the cameras, how to choose a NAS for the specific application. While this is focusing more on QVR Elite than anything else, obviously some things are shared between QVR Pro and QVR Elite. So here, first, what we'll do is have a little comparison between QVR Pro and QVR Elite. So the main big difference is sort of one of the lower points there is the amount of RAM required to run QVR Elite is a lot less. So it's a lot less stringent on its requirements. So you can run it on NAS down to 1 gig, which does include the ARM-based NAS that we do have in the lineup as well, so long as that ARM-based NAS has at least 1 gig of free RAM available in it. So you can use QVR Elite both on our QTS operating system as well as on QUTS Hero, whereas with QVR Pro, it only works with QTS. You can't run that on our Hero operating system. Another huge difference is the licensing structure. So with QVR Pro, it is perpetual licensing, which does bring it a little bit more expensive, especially for the initial deployment. But when you've got QVR Elite, you can do anything from a couple of extra cameras for $1.99 a month. It's much lower cost upfront investment to deploy it. In fact, with most pricing structures, so if you've got, say, 20 cameras that you need to connect, the pricing structure pretty much balances out that if you're going with our annual licensing options, you can go with up to 20 cameras with QVR Elite, and it will be the same price as QVR Pro up to about the 3-year mark. After that, of course, you do have to carry on with the subscription for QVR Elite, but that's the sort of pricing model there. So try and keep it on par up to at least the 3-year mark. Because QVR Elite is a bit more efficient with its resources, it does support more cameras as well. So we do support all the way up to 192 cameras, 192 channels with QVR Elite, whereas even the most powerful NAS that's running QVR Pro can still only max out at about 128 channels. It does depend on the model, and I'll show you how you can see the max channels for each one a bit later on as well. The top option there is we've got the different recording formats. So while QVR Pro does record natively in the QVI format, sort of a QNAP codec, you can export in MP4 if you want to. It just has to do a conversion to do that. Whereas with QVR Elite, it just records natively in the MP4 format. So if you want to export in MP4, a bit more universally supported, QVI is strictly Windows only. So with the MP4 format, there's no conversion needed to do your exports of your footage that you're recording as well. So that's the main differences between the two. As with other webinars we've done, we are taking questions as well. So it is a live session. If anybody has any questions, please do ask them as we go along, and we'll try to answer them as we go through this as well. So we'll move into the next option here. So this is some of the add-ons we've got. So this one is called QVR Human. So this is an add-on that you can purchase. So it's a subscription-based add-on that you can add in, and it will allow you to count the number of people moving through the frame. So you can draw a box within the camera view, and you can ask it to count how many bodies pass through that area. So this is useful if you were using this in a commercial aspect, so you're using this at the entrance of a shopping mall, something like that. It might be interesting to know that you can tell the retailers in the shopping mall how many people came through the door that day. So you're able to count the people, all using the smart technology here in QVR Human. So this is an add-on that is going to be available later this month when QVR Elite 2.1 is available. So that should be out in June this year. So as we move on to the next one, we've got the QVR AI Pack, which is actually a 2-pack-in-1 sort of thing. This one is a perpetual license, so there's no subscription for this one. This allows you to do QVR Smart Search. So this allows you to analyze, say, an hour-long section of your recordings. It does that in about 90 seconds, and you can quickly find a specific event in your recording. So if you wanted to, say, draw a box on a certain area where, let's say, a checkout was inside a supermarket, where you want to find out the exact moment that checkout was moved or opened or something like that, you can draw a box and you can tell it to go search. It's a bit like doing a Google search, but for live motion video there. So it's very easy to find when an event happens. So you can't just Google, when was the checkout register removed from where it's supposed to be. You can't type that, but you can draw a box and say, tell me when frames inside this one change. So we've got that feature in the AI pack. And we've also got the QVR Smart Client, which effectively allows you to do the same type of thing. But if you're using the Smart Client, it allows you to do that directly with the NAS on the HDMI output. So if you do use this QVR Elite on a NAS that has a HDMI output, this allows you to install that on that device so that it's running natively inside the NAS. It's not searching across the network, it's searching itself directly. In the case of the demo today, we're using a TS251D, not a hugely powerful NAS, just a dual core Celeron. This one does also have HDMI out, so we could use that on this one as well. And moving into just the last slide before we go to the demo, and this is the QVR Face apps. We've got two versions of the apps, so I'll cut to a web page in a moment to explain the differences. But we've got two options here: QVR Face Tiger and QVR Face Insight. They're both the same price. It does allow you to build smart facial recognition, so it does that in real time. You can do large databases of different profiles. It depends on the model as to how many profiles you can set up. But then you can apply multiple photos to each profile so you can get better accuracy. It doesn't do GPU analysis or anything like that, so you can run this on a NAS that doesn't have a GPU built in. But it's also able to link into other items. So for example, for QVR Pro, we do have options called QVR door access. So you could have it set so that if somebody has a swipe card to get through a certain door, and that swipe card is allowed through that door, if the camera detects a face that's not associated with that card, it wouldn't open the door. Even though that card's allowed through that door, if the facial recognition doesn't match the person that's supposed to be using that card, it wouldn't open the door. So you can set up lots of different options in there by leveraging lots of these little add-ons together. All of the add-ons are available today on QVR Pro, but for QVR Elite, it'll be out later this month. So just to explain a slight little difference between those two options, if I go across here, we've got a comparison chart on our software store for QVR Face Insight and QVR Face Tiger. You can see that largely most of the things are the same until you get down towards the bottom, where if you're using an AMD Ryzen 7 8-core, we would recommend that you would use QVR Face Tiger instead. So that's really the only difference between the two options there. But this just gives you a quick overview of the difference between the two. So all of the different bits of software that we've talked about today, they are available up in our software store. So if you did want to go see some different options, you've got QVR Pro, Surveillance Station, and QVR Elite. And as we scroll down, we've got all of the different add-on packs that we've got, and it tells you in each one whether it's a perpetual license or subscription, and it gives you a quick snapshot of what the pricing is underneath each one as you go through. So hopefully that's explained the sort of background of QVR Elite there for you. So what we'll do now is we'll jump straight into the NAS. So as I said earlier, this is a TS251D with only 4 gigs of RAM. I do have QVR Elite running on here. I think I've got 3 cameras added at the moment. And we're not using very much RAM at all. So that's nice to see. So very efficient. If I had QVR Pro running on this exact same NAS, the RAM usage would be up at about 60 to 70%. With just a basic install of about 3 cameras. So this is much more efficient, and this leaves me lots of headroom to even run things like the QVR Pro Client on the HDMI output if I wanted to. This NAS with just 4 gig of RAM, if I had QVR Pro, I wouldn't be able to do local display at the same time. I just wouldn't have enough RAM to do that. So the prerequisites for installing QVR Pro or QVR Elite is to have Container Station installed first. It will tell you that if you try to install from the App Center QVR Pro or QVR Elite before you have Container Station installed, it will tell you that you do need to install the dependent application for that. So in the surveillance section, you've got all the different options here to install. I've only got QVR Elite installed on this one. So when you click on QVR Elite, it'll open up a new web browser window, which I've got here. The first thing you do is you add up a recording storage. So this is done a little differently from QVR Pro. With QVR Pro, it effectively creates its own area of space, if you like. It puts a separate thick provision volume there that locks out the amount of capacity needed. Whereas when adding a recording space on QVR Elite, it adds the recording into one of your existing shares. So in this case, I created a share called QVR-Elite on the NAS, and that's where I told it to put the data. Haven't allocated much storage, just for what I'm showing here on the demo, but I've got the 3 channels added. If I go to recording location in days, we can see that they've been running for a couple of days. They're set to record for 7 days, but you can change that however you want. If you want to change the amount of recording allocated to each, you can take all the cameras there, go to the edit option, go to the edit the default settings. So here, if you wanted to change it to let them all record 8 days, you can change just those 2 figures there to 8, apply that, and say use those default settings. When you apply that, all the numbers there will change to 8. So it's very easy for you to customize, and you can also customize it per camera. Maybe some cameras you want to have more recording than others for longer periods, so by all means you can set them individually there as well. That's something that our really old surveillance station software couldn't do. So surveillance station is really one setting for all cameras. This allows you to get specific with the different options there for each of the different cameras. Adding cameras is really easy. So here we can see that I've got the cameras added. So the licensing structure between QVR Pro and QVR Elite is slightly different, apart from being subscription and perpetual. With QVR Pro, you get 8 free licenses included as standard, with a 14-day playback limit. With QVR Elite, you only get 2 licenses included for free, but there's no playback limits at all there. So you can have the recordings and playback for as long as you need for an unlimited period, or until you run out of capacity. So that's the main difference. So I have added a couple of channels here. If you ever do want to add a channel, it's really easy. The first thing you've got to do is go add it at the software store, go purchase your license. When you purchase it, it gets assigned to your QNAP ID. So when it's in your QNAP ID and your NAS is logged in with the same QNAP ID, you can go to the license center on the QNAP, and there's an option here to activate the license. So when you click activate license, it's going to pull up a box, and you can activate with keys. There's lots of ways to do it. The easiest way, if the NAS is online anyway, is to click select license, and it will go off and go log into your license account based off the credentials that you logged into the QNAP with, and it will show you all your different license options that you've got there. So if I see through here, I've got a lot of different licenses that I can add. So I can come here, I can tick a box, I say I want to add that license, I click add, and it'll go off and activate that license. So it's an online activation. But as I say, you can do offline activations as well if you want to. So there we go, your license has been activated. So if I was to go over here, we can see that now I've got a total channels of 5. So it's very easy to add some extra licenses into the NAS if you want, and there's a buy licenses button there as well that will take you off to the store to do the same options as well. Okay. So when you've got each of your cameras configured, you can go in and you can change the settings if you wish. So there's a change settings button over here. So in here, you can see all the information about the camera, so the IP address, ports, things like that. If you're using a camera off our compatibility list, we automatically know what the things like the port numbers and RTSP port numbers are. So we already fill that information in. If you've changed it from the defaults with your camera, you can change them. These boxes are editable if you need it to be. You've got the stream and recording options. So in the stream settings, if you've got a fancier camera than I have here, you'll see lots of options here for like stream 1, 2, and 3. And you can set different options for each one. So the options that we show here are populated because we know the camera supports these options because it was on the compatibility list. If you're using a camera that's not on the compatibility list, it'll still work. You might just have to add it with the OnVIF scheme instead. OnVIF will require you to know pretty much all the camera settings on your own. So things like the port numbers, resolutions you want, things like that, you're going to have all that information to hand to add the cameras with OnVIF. But if your camera supports OnVIF, we do too. So they're still going to work together just fine to link the two together. So you've got other options in here, things like event rules. So if you wanted to trigger an event, so you can add different rules to this. So when you add a different rule, you can say, you know, I want this to be say a motion rule or something like this. So you can say, I want to create a motion rule, and you say, if the following occurs, On my driveway camera, it's a motion detection option. So we can say we want the motion detection on driveway. So we'll tick that. We can go OK. And then we can say then do this. So we can go add, and we can say we want to do an event recording of the driveway camera and perhaps the front garden camera at the same time. So perhaps one camera is sort of covering both areas. You can, if the natural flow of, say, traffic past your business, your home, is that it will go from camera 1 to camera 2 in one direction, or camera 2 to 1. Every time there's a motion event, you can trigger both cameras to start recording at the same time if you wish as well. So it's very easy to do that. And then you can click OK, and then we've got a motion event set up. So it's very easy to set up the different motion events on the NAS. So very easy to add different options and go and edit them later. You don't have to do it single camera at a time. You can set up the motion events for all your different cameras all at once if you wish. So there we go. Very easy to set up the different rules. You've also got login. You've also got an option here to download the QVR Pro Client. So the QVR Pro Client is where you view the footage. That's where I guess all the viewing, the views that you set up, the different options like that, that's all done through the QVR Pro Client. So if you are using this in an offline capacity where it's not connected to the internet or something like that to download the app is stored within the device itself. So it will download directly from within the device. So if I just slide that in there, we've got the app here to do the setup so that we can connect to the different NAS that we've got. I think by me sliding it in, I've ruined the login screen there. One moment. Just close that out and open it again. So when you open up the QVR Pro Client, you do get a few options on where to log in. So whether you're logging into QVR Pro, QVR Elite, or Q Center. So there we go, logged in this time. So here we've got the different cameras that we've got set up. So the driveway camera, I think because I went in and changed some rules, it's just setting those rules up on the camera and it'll reconnect when it comes back. It just reboots the camera usually to add the motion event into it. So here you've got your different views. There's the camera. So here's how you set it up. All the blue bar at the bottom is where you've got recordings. So I did recordings, I think, for today and yesterday. So I should get a couple of days that pop up as blue. So it means I can go back to any point in time during those 2 days. So let's say I go back to Tuesday, I changed just that camera there that I was looking at. If I want all the views to sync up to the same, so we can see the others are still on today live feed, you can click the sync option at the bottom. So clicking sync will make all the cameras follow the same timeline. So you can click through the timeline to any point that you want, and it's going to do it. Oh, the cobwebs are real there. So you can click through to all the different options within the camera, within the timeline. And at any time, you can just click the live button and everything will go back to the live view as well. Down at the bottom, you do have the export option. So you can click export recordings. So we've got some set durations that you can pick. If you want to set an exact end time, you can have a time limit set for both of those. And you've got some advanced options down here. So you can choose the format being original, AVIs, MP4s. You can choose some different options. Now, when you go down to the different options, you can include different options like timestamp, channel name, digital watermark if you wish. So you can add all these different options on there. But it's very easy for you to do. And even when you're doing the export recordings, you see you've got some sliders down here. So if you want to start the recording or the end point of the recording, you can just drag the time sliders as well down on the timeline at the bottom. And if you do have a camera that's got pan, tilt, and zoom, things like that, you've got the options down here to control them. So you've got your up, down, left, right, and zoom in and out. And you've also got your parking position. So if you've got the camera set to go to up to 3 preset points, you can click this button down here and it'll do a shift to the different preset points. It'll cycle through all the options that you've got set. If at any point you want to focus in on something a bit more specific, so if we go to say just my back garden view and you want to create a zone that you want to focus on a bit more, you can turn one camera into many channels if you wish. So you can set a region of interest. So let's say we want to zoom in on whatever's down there. So let's say these nice funky little plant pots, we can have that as a view. If you want to say monitor the children over on the trampoline, you can have that as a different view. So you can set quite a few points of interest if you want to. So anybody breaking into the car, so you can have them all set up in different angles. So you've got your one view at the top, which is all everything that's happening on all the field of view of the camera. but you can also drag that around to any way you like, and it's updating live. And you can save this as a complete new view if you want to. So you can have these as clickable views for specific cameras. This feature is even more impressive if you're using one of those 360 cameras where you've got the sort of fisheye view, which is all warped. We can use our QDewarp technology so that you can set lots of fields of view that make more sense. So if you've got the 360 view, you can have lots of different views from that camera where you're effectively turning the one camera that can see everything in the whole room or the whole area that it's installed in. You can have lots of cameras from that specific one camera install. So that's very easy for you to set up different views and different options. And we've also got emaps down at the bottom. So if you do have a map of your property, you can drag the cameras on here. So you can say, you know, I've got camera 1 in one place, camera 2. So you can upload your floor plans on there if you wish. So you've got lots of different options for each floor plan. So if you wanted to drag those on, it's very easy for you to just sort of grab a camera from over here and place it on the map. And if you want to go find a camera in a specific area, you don't know what the camera is or the name of the camera, you can just go click on it and it'll go straight to the view of that camera if you wanted to as well. So that's really the overview of the software. It's very easy to use, very simple. The views are saved centrally. So if you create a new view for the system here, so if I say have the front garden and then drag in one with the back garden, I want to just call this view, let's say, gardens. So let's say gardens. So now I've got the two views, one that's the 3-camera view, which is all the different cameras. I think I changed that because I dragged them all in. 1 second. Reposition those back to how they were. There we go. We'll save that one. So now you've got your different views. Every view that you create here is all going to be stored back on the NAS itself. So if you wanted to go through and set these up for one person, so you're the administrator installing this for a lot of different people, you can set it up as the admin, and then you see all of the different views that have been created here. You will see those on the back end of the NAS interface. So if we were to say go into surveillance privileges here, and you've got the different user groups and different roles. So let's say you've got different users, you can go through and you can pick which views they're allowed to see, which ones. So we can see the 2 saved ones there is gardens and 3-camera. We can give them permission. So these are all saved centrally. It's not per user creating their own groups. You can limit it so that the admin can create 10 views, but then user 1 can only have, say, 2 of them, and user 2 can have 3 different views. You know, you can change it to however you want. But the cool thing is that any views that are set up in the surveillance software are synchronized across all different options, all different users that are logging in. They aren't just for the specific user that's looking at it. And we've also got some sort of standardized views. If you didn't want to drag the cameras in and around, you can choose some of the different presets that we've got there as well. There's quite a few to choose from. I think you need a lot more cameras to select some of the different options we've got, but very easy to show all your different cameras. I have a question from somebody here, from Ted, asking what camera resolution and frame rate are you using? So I believe I am using, let me just go and show you actually. So if I go tick on the driveway camera and go edit it, go to the stream settings. So I'm using 2304 by 1296 at a frame rate of 10 and a bit rate of 2048. I did used to have this set up at 4096, but at 4096, I honestly can't tell the difference in the quality, but I sure can tell the difference in the amount of space used. It uses obviously double the space if you double the bit rate. Got a question here from Martin. For mobile app access, is it peer-to-peer? So if you're using the mobile app to access this interface, it talks to the server directly so that you can then also utilize the views. So any views you create in the main interface, you can use directly through the mobile app. I'm not sure if I answered that one correctly, Martin. Let me know if I didn't. And also, is there any cloud connectivity for managing multiple NASs? So we do have an option coming. So with QVR Pro, we have an application called QVR Center. So QVR Center is a really cool app that allows you to aggregate, let's say, channels 1 through 10 on NAS 1 and channels 1 through 10 on NAS 2 into one set of 20 channels if you want to. So you only have to log into one place and you can see the cameras from multiple different NAS if you want to. For that to work with QVR Elite, it has to have an app update. So the schedule for that should be released soon. It is supposed to be toward the end of summer, but basically we're waiting for QVR Center version 2 to come out, which will have capabilities in it to work with both QVR Pro as well as also with QVR Elite. So yeah, there is an option to do sort of more central management of different surveillance options. If you're talking NAS in general, we do have the Q Center app that's a bit simpler to use just for managing the NAS itself. Is there a cost for the central management? No, it's all built into the QVR Center application. I believe if you have QVR Pro, you do have to have QVR Pro Gold if you want to connect more than 2 separate NAS. But with QVR Elite, no, there is no extra cost for this management. Okay, so we'll now move on to a couple of different options here within the picking the different cameras. So on our website, if we go to the solutions option and down to surveillance and video, you've got the options here for the picking cameras, whether you're using QVR Pro or QVR Elite. So we'll choose QVR Elite here. And then you've got a big list that will pop up with lots and lots, literally thousands of cameras. So you can identify which camera from the brand that you're looking at. So Ted's asking, does the software require a license for each camera? We did cover that a little bit at the start, but yes, Ted, we do need a license for each camera. So if you're using QVR Pro, you get 8 free licenses. If you're using QVR Elite, you get 2. But it does depend on the structure of whether you want them. I'll cover off the licensing again at the end so everybody can catch that. So yeah, let's have a look through the different options. So if I go through and use the cameras that I've got as an example, so we'll go to the Rio link. I've got the RLC 410 5 megapixels here, which is this one on this line. And we can see all the features that we support with that camera. So it shows the max resolution, whether it's a multiple stream option, and all the different functions that it's got are all listed there. So obviously there's a lot of different cameras in these lists to work from. So one of the sort of, I guess, bigger brands of cameras that you can choose here would probably be the Axis cameras. So Axis are probably one of the more popular ones. So if we go to Axis, this camera list is absolutely huge. So if I was to sort of pick the scroll bar and scroll, we can see that there's probably a couple of thousand cameras there just for Axis alone. So depending on the one you're on, depends on what it supports, what codec it supports, H.264, H.265, and JPEG, all the different options, how many streams they support. Most of the Axis ones support multiple streams, so you've got the 3-stream option there. But yes, very, very fully comprehensive list there, so much more options to pick from there. Now, one of the other things is picking which NAS you need. So to look for the different NAS that you've got, we do have a separate section for select a suitable NAS for deploying our surveillance. So this is accessed through the same menu, solutions, and then you can go through and pick which option that you would want. So when you're picking a NAS, so basically the NAS selector section, so QVR Pro, QVR Elite NAS selector. So here I've just got some basic options. So let's say I'm doing 10 cameras, 7 days, 30 frames a second. As we scroll down the list, some of the NAS only run QVR Pro, so we're only seeing those options there. But as we scroll down, we start seeing the recommendation for each split between both QVR Pro and QVR Elite. As we start getting down to more powerful NAS, we start seeing the options start to split out completely. So for example, on the TS-H1683XU, we do see the options here that you can run 64 cameras if you're using QVR Pro on this one, but you can double that up to 128 cameras if you run QVR Elite instead. So whilst, yes, the licensing is subscription with QVR Elite compared to perpetual with QVR Pro, sometimes it's not really about the cost of the licensing, it's what you can do with the specific NAS. So as that NAS is quite powerful, having the more efficient QVR Elite to manage a database of many more cameras, going with QVR Elite is going to be the better option if you needed more than 64 cameras. If you needed more than 64 cameras, the situation might be that you would have to buy 2 NAS to contain the footage of those cameras, simply because you've hit the hard limit of how many licenses they can install. So this configurator is quite powerful. It does go through and check a lot of different options, and it tells you in the specific numbers here what you're getting for the total solution. So if I was to double this from 10 cameras to say 20 cameras, we'd expect most of the numbers here to double down at the bottom here. So as we go through 20, we'll update the settings. and we can see the numbers have all gone up. So it's going to let you know which NAS is the recommended for each one. Now, I did mention a little bit earlier about using things like QVR Pro Client and using QVR Center. There's tick boxes for those. So if you are going to be running QVR Pro Client on the NAS through the HDMI, it's important to check this box. And also if you want to use the QVR Center on one of the NAS that's also doing the recording, obviously it's not running for free. It does use up some resources in there. So there will be some RAM and CPU allocated to that. So whilst it's managing itself, it could also be managing 10 different QVR Elite setups or QVR Pro setups. So that's where you'd have to use QVR Center. So we can give you a better recommendation of the hardware specs that each one's going to need. I do have a question here from Magnus saying, I use QVR Pro Client, but often it hangs when logging in. A reboot of the NAS fixes the problem. Could this have anything to do with the RAM demands so Elite would work better? You have 8 gig of RAM. It does depend on what else your NAS is doing, Magnus. So yes, if you completely max out the RAM on the unit, it might hang a little bit simply because it's been kicked out the RAM if other things are trying to use it. So if all your NAS was doing was QVR Pro and the QVR client through the HDMI output, and that's all it did, 8 gig of RAM should be plenty. But your NAS is probably doing more than that. It's probably doing other things in your environment. You might have it running a Plex media server, virtual machines, some other things that are consuming the RAM resource. So when I say that the NAS must have 1 gig of RAM, or 4 gig of RAM to run the app, it's not total. It needs that amount free to run those applications. So before you install QVR Pro, you need to go look at your NAS stats and make sure that you've got 4 gig of RAM free once you've got everything else running in the NAS. So long as you've got 4 gig of RAM or more free, you should have no problems running it. But yes, that's largely one of the issues that could be happening if the NAS completely fills up and you've used all the RAM. So if your NAS was running at 70% total RAM used, then no, that's probably not the problem. I'd recommend opening up a support ticket about it because there could be another issue. Also, always make sure the apps are up to date as well with the latest version, just to make sure it's working well. Okay, so just one last thing, I will cover off just the licensing once again, just because we did have an extra question about that. So when we go through the different licensing, so with QVR Pro, the software that you can run on QTS only, this software is a perpetual license. You get 8 free channels included with your NAS, and the only restriction is there is a 14-day playback limit. So we've got different options here. If 8 channels is enough and you just want unlimited playback, there is a license to just have the unlimited playback. You can see that there, the $99 one. If you go for the Gold license, Gold gives you 8 channels and the unlimited playback all bundled into one. So obviously that should be closer to $600, but that's $400. So that will take your NAS. If you install this one Gold license, you get 16 channels because that's 8 on top of the included 8 free ones, plus unlimited playback. So you get an unlimited recording playback of 16 channels with the Gold, and then you can add different packs on. If you need another 8 channels, you do have to then go to the 8 channel pack. You cannot add more than one Gold license to QVR Pro. For QVR Elite, it's broken down into a per camera situation with the subscription. You get 2 free licenses with no restrictions. So there's no playback limits or anything like that with QVR Elite. It is completely open. So those 2 free camera licenses we give you are unlimited playback. But you can add them in for as little as $1.99 a month with the price structure there in our software store, up to $19.99 per year, or if you go with the 3-year plan, it's the most cost effective, it's $49.99. So your initial outlay for QVR Elite, depending on the amount of cameras, is usually going to be a lot less than with QVR Pro. Obviously, if you needed anything less than 8 cameras and your NAS is capable of it, it might be better to go with QVR Pro with the unlimited playback, but for most solutions above 8 cameras, it's always going to be a lower cost investment to go with QVR Elite. And also, when you start getting into that higher amount of cameras used, QVR Elite is just going to be the more efficient one. It's much more efficient at managing its camera database, the whole structure of it. So if you have a NAS that maybe only has 16 gig of RAM, but you want a lot of cameras, QVR Elite is probably the option, regardless of the cost situation between the license pack options. Okay, so that's the different options. I've covered off the software. If anybody has any other questions, please do let us know. We'll keep the session open for a little bit longer. So if anybody has anything, let us know. For anybody that missed the start of the session or anything like that, we will be downloading the recording of this, and we'll put it up on our QNAP UK YouTube channel for you to go and have a look at there within the next couple of days. And there's plenty of other content up there. We do a lot of different tutorial and sort of showcase videos up there for you to go have a look at as well, if anybody hasn't already checked that one out. Okay, thanks a lot.